They asked for his papers. Jean-Pierre Mukamana reached into his pocket. The card was laminated, worn at the edges. Issued decades earlier by Belgian colonial administrators. Stamped with a single word, Tutsi. That word decided the next 5 minutes of his life. Before colonial rule, identity in Rwanda was not fixed. Status shifted. Families intermarried. Wealth mattered more than lineage. A man without cattle might be called Hutu. A man who gained cattle could become Tutsi. Then the Belgians arrived. They wanted order. They wanted records. They wanted a population that could be counted and managed. So they conducted a census. They measured skulls, recorded height, noted facial features, and forced every household into a category. One decision, filed once, made permanent. Jean-Pierre's grandfather owned little land, no cattle. Neighbors treated him as Hutu, but the census classified him as Tutsi. That classification was copied into official ledgers, then printed onto identity cards. The Belgians left Rwanda. The paperwork remained. In April 1994, roadblocks appeared across the country. Militiamen carried machetes and lists. They did not argue history. They did not debate ideology. They checked cards. At Jean-Pierre's farm, they demanded identification. The card matched the records. There was no appeal, no explanation, no correction. Jean-Pierre was killed where he stood. His wife beside him. His children were chased into the fields. None returned. The card survived intact. After the genocide, the government abolished ethnic labels. New identity cards were issued. Children were legally registered as only one thing, Rwandan. But the farms were empty. Villages had missing families. Survivors avoided certain roads. Neighbors remembered who had checked cards and who had stood behind the roadblocks. The census had completed its work. Long after its authors were gone, no colonial officer lifted a blade. No bureaucrat pulled a trigger. The weapon was paper. The trigger was obedience. When power asked a simple question, "Who are you?" the answer had already been written. The paperwork did not end in Rwanda. After the Belgians proved identity could be fixed, other administrations copied the method. Across Europe, census offices expanded. Religion was recorded. Language was noted. Addresses were standardized. Files multiplied. In the Netherlands, Jewish families answered routine census questions. Names, faith, occupation, address. Nothing seemed dangerous. Then power changed hands. Nazi administrators did not need door-to-door searches. They opened filing cabinets, cross-checked census rolls with synagogue records, street by street, house by house. Trains ran on schedules. Lists were accurate. Deportations were efficient. In the Ottoman Empire, Armenian households were counted and registered. Population records mapped villages. Families were identified before deportation orders were issued. The routes were planned using census data. The destinations were known. The outcomes were not recorded. In Stalinist Ukraine, collectivization required identification. Kulaks were defined on paper before they were defined in life. Records determined who lost land, who was exiled, who disappeared. Colonial administrations called it governance. Modern states called it administration. Bureaucrats called it neutrality. The forms did not ask about danger. They asked for clarity. Once identity was written, it could be retrieved. Once retrieved, it could be acted upon. No debate required. Years passed. Regimes fell. Files remained. In Rwanda, new identity cards removed ethnic labels, but the old records were never erased. They existed in archives, in memories, in accusations whispered after dark. Survivors knew who had held lists, who had checked cards, who had stood at roadblocks pretending to follow procedure. Paper did not kill alone, but it made killing fast. No hatred was required at the moment of violence, only confirmation, a stamp, a category, a match. The census promised knowledge. What it delivered was access. Access to bodies, access to homes, access to endings. Long after colonial officers boarded ships home, long after administrators retired, their classifications continued to function. When power shifted again, the system was already built. And when the question returned, not shouted, not argued, but calmly requested, Who are you? The answer waited patiently in ink, in files, in a card carried in a pocket.